And because of the way they put their foliage up, spikes, they're not competing for light. And if you've mulched it properly, you're going to have all the water you need. So the ideal companion plant for garlic, perhaps, is onion. I don't know, it's just something like that. Hey, it's Greg here at MaritimeGardening.com, and I had a bit of a revelation out here in the garden, and I thought I'd share this with you and walk you through the entire process of me putting this revelation into practice from start to finish sort of thing. So I've got a garden bed right here, and I'm going to plant some garlic in it. But something that I wonder about every year is I like to plant onions and I like to plant garlic, and I rotate my crops because when you rotate things you just lower the risk of various problems starting to exist in your soil, whether that's pests or soil-borne diseases or a variety of things. The research seems to show, and historical practices seem to show, that planting different things in different places every year, there's a lot of advantages to that. So that's a good idea. But I'm constrained in the sense that this part of my garden here is outside of my fence. So I got a fenced-in garden over here and just exposed to the wilderness garden over here. And it is wilderness. Let me show you. So we pan out here a little bit. That over there is a wilderness area. If I walked that way, in a number of days, I'd eventually reach civilization. There is more civilization that way if you go far enough, but it's very thick and very inhospitable. There's no trails through there. You can't take an ATV through there. You can't drive a car through there. And the only really walking paths are ones that have been made by wild animals or the odd human being, maybe like a hunter or something like that's made a path. But I mean, I've spent a lot of time back there in the woods. It's pretty rough going. Anyway, the point is that is a wilderness area, and so all the animals that live there walk by here all the time. So there's only so many things I can grow out here that are deer proof, porcupine proof, rabbit proof, etc., 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 proof, bear proof. There's only certain things that they seem to leave alone, and I found those things to be tomatoes, potatoes, squash, pumpkins, onions, garlic. If I'm missing anything, and herbs, of course. You know, almost every herb is herbivore proof for the most part, which is odd. Herb is herbivore proof, but anyway. So I'm going to plant some garlic here. The rotation is such that it's time to plant garlic here, and it just dawned on me because the difficulty when you're trying to rotate garlic through your different beds, and you're trying to rotate onions through your different beds, you have to treat them as though they're the same thing. They're both part of the same family. They're both prone to many of the same problems. How do you do that math? Because, you know, it just makes it twice as difficult. So you got basically more of the same. Especially when you, like me, you want to plant. I want to plant a lot of garlic, and I want to plant a lot of onions because they store well. I use them all up. I use them in everything all the time. You know, I plant like 250 heads of garlic a year, and it's still not enough garlic, right? It's just almost like no upper limit. We eat a lot of garlic in our home, and we eat a lot of onions. I mean, basically, if I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking, step one is cut up some garlic and onions for almost just about anything I'm doing. So I got to plant some garlic here, and it just dawned on me this year, why not set it up in such a way that I space my garlic out like a foot apart, right? Because it's the fall, this is October. It's actually the day before Canadian Thanksgiving, so it's like October 13th, I think. And Thanksgiving's a different day every year. It's usually on a Monday. So why not space the garlic out 2 hand spans for me, which is about 14, 16 inches sort of thing, right? Why not space? I usually plant my garlic fairly tight, basically 1 every 6 inches, one every 7 inches in a grid. Why not space the garlic out a little bit more and plant onions in the same bed as the garlic? Think about how well they do together. The garlic doesn't cast shade. The onions don't cast shade. They both need a lot of light. to get really good results. The more light, the better, right? I mean, most crops, they do better when you give them the prime real estate. So you can give them prime, they can share the space. They can be relatively close. You think the garlic is planted maybe 4 or 5 inches deep in the soil, or 3 inches deep, but the roots are going down 4 or 5 inches deep, right? And the onions are a little higher in the soil, so the roots are accessing different levels of the soil. So they're not competing a whole lot. And because of the way they put their foliage up, spikes, they're not competing for light. And if you've mulched it properly, you're going to have all the water you need. So the ideal companion plant for garlic, perhaps, is onion. Right? I don't know, it's just something that dawned on me, and because it works so well with the rotation schedule, I'm putting it all in one place. I've realized that I've got, in my garden, I've got rows of beds. So where this camera is, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, I got 5 4x8 beds. Where I'm sitting, if you go down the hill, I got 5 4x8 beds. Then I have another row of 4x8 beds, and another row of 4x8 beds, and another, that's 5 rows of 4x8 beds. And I need to, if I'm going to work garlic properly through my rotation, I have to put one of those I got 5 rows. There has to be a garlic bed in every one of those rows every year. So where do the onions go if they're also in the same family and they have to be separate from that rotation? Put them in with the garlic. So I'm going to try this and we'll see how it works. So here I got a bed where I grew squash last year. I planted garlic in the bed next to it last year, so I basically, my rotation approach is just to move everything over one every year, and try not to, repeat something in the same family, any more than once every 4 years. 4-year crop rotation schedule, generally speaking. Do I break that rule once in a while? Yeah, of course. Take it easy. It's relax, right? So it's a gardening. It's supposed to be fun. So here I got a bed where I grew some squash, and I need to, I'm going to plant I've got some nice garlic here, seed garlic that I saved, and I want to plant. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk you through the whole process here. The first step is I'm going to get the mulch, I'm going to put the mulch back on, and I'm going to take the mulch off so I can level the soil out a bit. So let's grab the rake and get her done. Alright, so now I got these lovely seed garlic that I've saved, and it's time to get these in the ground. I've got everything, reasonably leveled out here. Got the mulch put aside just so I can, the only reason I put the mulch aside was so I could properly assess the level of the soil. It only took a minute. Right now I know the soil's close to level, close enough. Close enough is good enough. So now it's time to put these garlic in. So there's lots of different ways to plant garlic. This soil is ridiculously soft, right? So all I got to do is use my hands here, and the next thing is to just break these up and position them, right? So generally speaking, if you're going to save your own seed garlic, you save the biggest ones. If you want to get big garlic, plant big garlic. And not just biggest ones in terms of how big the actual bulb is, but each actual garlic. So if you look at these, I got different ones, right? So I got 4 cloves from this one head, and this clove is about twice the size as this clove. Right? Even though they're from the same head. Man, I'm going to plant them all, but this one's going to give me a bigger garlic, of course. Anyway, so we're going to position these out. I'm going to do them in rows going this way. And I put one, basically every hand span, I put a clove. And people might ask how I... You might think these are kind of hard to get into. All you got to do is move that around a little bit, and taking your thumbnail, you find the spaces between the cloves and just run your thumbnail down them like that. Do it really quick, and you'll find the thing pops open very easily if you do it that way. That's just keep you from bruising the tops of these things. I'm sure it doesn't matter too much, but if you're worried about that way it won't bruise these very tips so much. All right, so I got a row there, and now I'm going to go over 2 hand spans. 1, 2. Make another row. Now that I space this row out, I can just use the previous row as a gauge, right? Breaking these open as I go. And if you wanted to really ensure that you only got big garlic, when you were going through this process and choosing your heads, you could put aside the smaller cloves for eating and just use the large cloves for planting. I really don't bother. I just put everything in. I don't worry about it too much. Anyway, that's the jumbo process. Now I'm going to do this whole bed. We'll speed it up a little bit for the sake of speed. Alright, so now I got these all positioned. Basically I got a row every, I don't know, about 14 inches. And I got a garlic every 6 inches. Now I'm just going to plant them. I basically plant them a finger deep. You just grab them with your fingers and wiggle them in a bit until your knuckles hit the soil level. And you've got this nice soft soil, which you will have if you practice no-till gardening. This guy's never been tilled. But look how soft it is. Never been tilled, soft as can be. Had squash growing here this summer of 2019. And the soil is as soft as you could possibly want soil to be. There's a rock there. You don't want your garlic growing next to a rock because it'll mess up its shape. Not that that matters too much, but and you just smooth that over a bit. Keep going. So it all happens very quickly when you do it this way. You got the nice soft soil, right? That's all that's required. Next spring, when the garlic comes up, the garlic's going to come up before I plant onions anyway. The garlic will come up around the time that it's time to plant onions, so it works out just fine. So the garlic will come up, I'll know where the garlic is, and I'll plant the onions in between the rows of garlic. And just in case someone asks, because people always ask this, does it matter if you want the garlic to have a nice shape? I think the garlic will grow no matter what you do, but if you want it to have a nice shape, you plant it with the pointy part pointing up and the rooty part pointing down. Then you get the nice uniform shape. That's all you got to do. All right, now we got the garlic on here, and it's time to put the mulch back on. Conveniently stored right next by. This is just leaves and grass clippings and basically whatever. Mostly just leaves, stuff like that. You don't have to be too fussy. Anything will work. You notice I'm even using these old blackberry vines. It'll all break down. I think people often overcomplicate this. People are always asking me what's the best mulch. Stop thinking that way. I'm sure it's just I think you're gonna waste a lot of time and energy trying to figure out what is the best mulch. Just use what's at hand, and in fact weeds are great mulch, right? So just use whatever you can get your hands on. Use what's easy to get. Don't drive out of town. Use what's either on your property or right down the road would be my example. That's the best mulch. I mean, you're minimizing your overall ecological impact. If that's important to you, it's certainly important to me. But it's also just cheaper and wastes less gasoline and time and all that sort of stuff. I'm always amazed at how far people are willing to drive to gather certain resources. And it's like people don't understand that gasoline costs money and has an incredible ecological impact. Anyway, I don't want to get on a soapbox here. Done. So there you have it. Garlic, the ideal companion plant for onions. I mean, I'm not, this is just an experiment, right? So if you're apprehensive about the idea, you know, watch next year and see how it works out for me. Or try it and tell me how it went for you. Or if you've tried this and it works, let me know. If you've tried this and it's terrible, let me know. It's just an idea I had. I'm always trying to improve the way I go about my gardening, and always just mulling over what I did before and how to make the best use of the space and all that sort of stuff. This is just one more example of that, and just one more you know, development along that road, or that journey of learning and developing as a no-till gardener, as a permaculture gardener, and just as a person trying to grow his own food in general. So I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.